Well, good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. We're almost 3/4 of the way. Well, actually, we're more than 3/4 of the way through January, but time flies. So let's get started.
Yes, thank you, Derek, and thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm just going to flip over to our main page. So today we're going to be talking about one word. There's just going to be a couple of housekeeping items here. So a small disclaimer to begin with. This material is provided for general information, and the statements and opinions expressed are those of the presenters, Derek and I, and not necessarily those of Asante Financial Management. To avoid any interruptions, please keep yourselves muted with your cameras off. We will be recording this presentation for viewing at a later time. And on the topic of one word and bettering ourselves for 2023, we have decided to shorten this webinar from our usual hour to 45 minutes. So the presentation portion will be about 30 minutes long, and then we've set aside about 10 to 15 minutes at the end for your questions. How to submit your questions. On your Zoom, there should be a little chat bubble at the bottom. You would just go in there as we're doing the presentation. If you have any questions, just type them in there. They won't be seen by any other members except for us, Derek and I. So just put them in there and we'll get to those at the end. So without further ado, let's take a look at the agenda. We will go through what is one word all about. Then we'll walk through the different steps of discovery, implementation, and follow through. And at the end, Derek and I will share our own word for the year. So Derek, why don't you get us started with explaining what one word is?
All right. Well, let's take a look at this picture here. And the key behind one word is it gives you a vision or a theme for the entire year. And most importantly, what it does, it gives you a focus. It's very simple, a very simple concept. Less is more, simple is powerful. If you're thinking of, as the illustration here, a dartboard, you throw 3 darts and they're nicely spread across the dartboard. If you're investing, diversification is great. But if you're playing darts, you want to get 3 bullseyes because you get the most points for that. So that's the purpose of one word. Can we bring things down so that just at the snap of a finger or thinking of one word, we can sort of realign all of our thoughts into what we want the year to look like. So it creates clarity, power, passion, and actually changes your life. So New Year's resolutions, one reason we held off till this time of the month is that according to some studies, about 62% of people that set a health and fitness goal, like for joining a new fitness club and so on, by now they have stopped doing that on a regular basis. So New Year's resolutions don't really work. They don't have that same passion, that power, that clarity. Even goals, people set goals. Sometimes they'll use the start of the year. Sometimes they'll use a business year or their birthday year, whatever. But goals, it's important to have them, but often they fall by the wayside as well. So what this does, this one word, will give us a renewed purpose throughout the year and laser-like focus. So it's, in essence, you can see sort of the dull light behind Chelsea and I. Those are fluorescent lights. They're very nice and they're very calming and all that great. But the same electricity that goes into that fluorescent light also goes into a laser beam. And a laser beam, because it's focused, can cut through a sheet of steel. So this one word, we're trying to get you to focus like that so that you can cut through all the clutter around you and have the best year ever. So even though we're narrowing the focus, the goal is to broaden the impact and have it impact and affect every area of your life. So many great athletes, in fact, I'd probably venture a guess at all of them, and even some of us that are not so great, have spent time visualizing what it's like to shoot that winning basket or cross the finish line at the front of the race, score the winning goal in overtime in the Stanley Cup final, all those kind of things. And those top athletes and professionals in many other industries constantly visualize themselves doing it. They're seeing what their future self is intended to be. I'm the champion. I'm the best at this, the best at that. And the mind works to achieve whatever it's presented with. So let's present it with something really good. What is your mind focusing on right now? Is it focusing on something positive or is it focusing on something negative? I think that's a good start. Chelsea, anything to add to that?
No, I think that gives everyone an idea of what it is and how it differs from, the typical New Year's resolutions. So now we'll get started on step one and how to create, how to prepare your heart. So you can see Abraham Lincoln's quote here, and it's pretty much saying a dull mind is likely a greater handicap than a dull axe. If your mind and your brain has lost focus, it doesn't matter what tools you have or how strong they are, it likely won't work out in the end. So Abraham was smart enough to know that, okay, before I start just hacking away at this tree, let's sharpen my axe and we'll probably get it done, or we will get it done faster and more efficiently. Now, we all tend to get lost in the day-to-day busyness, but in order to do this right, we need to take action and strategically disengage from the hectic pace of life and look inside. To do this, we need to avoid clutter and distractions, quiet your mind, find a quiet room, dim the lights, and focus inward. Busyness does actually tend to rob us of life. So that's step one of that part. And then once you've created that environment for yourself, you've unplugged from all the noise, it's time to ask ourselves a few essential questions. Number one is, what do I need? Especially this year, what do you need? What's in your way? Are there any obstacles that could get in your way from what you need? And what needs to go? What do you need to get rid of? It is important that you write down your insights to these three questions so you can reflect back on them and circle back throughout the year to ensure your obstacles have been cleared. You've rid yourself of all the things that needed to go. And then once all that is done, you have your list. We're now physically and mentally prepared. The next step is, how do we get our word? How do we discover our word? And that is what Derek is going to tell us now.
Just before you move on, Chelsea, those last two slides hopefully gave you a picture of how we're to get into this state to find our word, to discover it, is that we need to get rid of the clutter. That's so important. We're human beings, not human doings. But I'm very guilty of being a human doing, goal setter, and all that sort of stuff. Our world pushes us to do more and more, faster and faster. Most goals are focused on doing something or having something. But one word can help you, as that picture, that heart, and that's where it's looking into, is what do you want to be? So what do you want your future self to be? Who do you want to be in the future? So that's something important in getting into sort of what is your word. So look up, discover your word. So, oops. So for me, I have a faith. And so for me, that's a spiritual thing. I look up and get ready to receive my word. I don't go looking for it so much as I wait for a word to come to me. So having made a sort of a peaceful existence, clearing out the clutter, just waiting to see what comes into my mind. So for me, that's a spiritual exercise, expecting God to sort of plop a word or a picture or some kind of image in my mind. If you're not so spiritual, just, again, think of those last two pictures of an empty room or a beautiful sunrise where you're just sitting and you're not worried about what's going on in the world. Calm yourself down. What words come to mind? Words, phrases, pictures. Listen carefully to those thoughts. And then when a word stands out to you, write it down and meditate on all that one word implies for your life. I'll walk through an example of what that means, how I got my word, and a little bit later on. But you don't just look at the word itself, say, oh, great, that's here. How is that going to impact the various parts of your life? Mm-hmm. Chelsea, anything else?
Yeah, I just wanted to the way you discover your word could be very different between you and your friend, or say you and your spouse that are going through this exercise together. Derek and I, for example, I know Derek had a very different process than me. It took a little bit more time, a little bit more focus. Derek has been doing this for many more years than I have. So he's gone through more words. And the more words you go through, it's the harder to think of a new word. But for me, it was pretty quick and easy. Like I knew right away, this was my word. And it was just how I was going to implement in the rest of my life was the thinking part. So how you discover your word could be very different from one person to the next. So thank you, Derek, for explaining that. The next step after you have discovered your word is how to implement that word into your life in all areas. And this is typically where the rubber meets the road. So like, okay, great, this is my word. Now what? So this is where people usually get stuck, the brakes come on, and what do we do next? So here are some things that you can use to keep that going throughout the rest of the year. It is important to keep your one word front and center. As Derek mentioned earlier, the mind works to achieve whatever image it is presented with. So it's important that we have regular reminders of our word throughout the year to keep it front and center. So to ensure you have regular reminders of your word, here are 3 things that you'll do, or write down 3 things that you'll do to help you achieve this. Some examples that you could do are writing it on your bathroom mirror. So every time that you wake up in the morning, you look at yourself and you're like, right, that's my word. That's what I'm going to focus on today. You can put it as your screensaver on your smartphone or your computer. Every time you pick up your phone, that's what you see. You can do a sticky note on your fridge. So every time you open your fridge door, you're reminded this is your word, that's your focus. Or you can even add it on your phone as a daily reminder or even an alarm on your phone. At the end of the day, what gets your attention gets your focus. So it's important that we're constantly reminded of our word, and that will lead you to success, or help you at least along the way. Now, there's a little bit more to living out your word, and Derek is going to walk us through that now.
So it's important that we focus on this, but we're too much, especially in the Western world, very independent oriented. And that's great for a lot of things. We need to be responsible and all that. But we can get a lot more accomplished when we've got a supportive team. So you can put your one word on steroids by engaging yourself with a support team. It's always easier to accomplish something when you've got people of like mind that are supporting you. So write down the names of 2 or 3 people, maybe family members, maybe close friends, an accountability partner, so to speak, and sort of in your inner circle, close people with whom you would share your word once you get it. But you have to be wise. Not everyone will share your enthusiasm. And similar with goal setting, you have to be careful. There's a lot of firefighters out there, and I'm not talking about the guys that get into the calendar for the firemen and all that. I'm talking about dream killers. Sometimes these could even be close friends that don't want you to accomplish your goal, and they might have the best interest at heart. They might think that you're taking too much of a risk, and they don't want you to hurt yourself or don't want you to fail. They might be jealous because if he does this, then I'm going to have to do this too, because we're good friends and I have to keep up with him. So just be careful that you're sharing this word with somebody that sort of shares the same vision of the future as you do. So that would be the thing, is to share that with a couple other people. Now you've got other people that will help keep you accountable to that word.
I think they called it the stretch team. So I think you could reach out and grab these people for encouragement along the way who know that they're going to support you. So yeah, definitely a great idea, and really important, I think, really to keep this going throughout the year, because if you're just doing it yourself, you can get down on yourself. So having these people to bring you up will help a lot. Okay, so now we're going to look at 6, or there could be more areas of your life where this one word will be impacted. Derek will walk us through that.
So I've seen all sorts of different wheels or circles of what's important in life, some as few as 4, some as many as 10 or 12. We've sort of settled on 6 here, but really what you need to do is decide what are the key important areas of your life, whether you call that family, whether it's work, whatever. But what you need to look at with that word is we're narrowing the focus to one word, but then you have to look at it. How is this word going to work itself out, or what it's going to look like in a spiritual area? So we're all spirit beings. We have spirit, soul, and body. Some have a religious faith, if you want to call it that, faith in God. Others have different kind of things. But how is your word going to impact or affect your spirituality? How is it going to affect your physical body? What about your emotions? We all have emotions. They're good. Like, if you see a bear in the woods, it's good to experience fear and run fast. But they can also cause us to make poor decisions because when the heart, the emotions, and the mind, the logic, come into competition with one another, usually the emotion wins out. And so especially like when we're talking about investing, everybody says they want to buy low and sell high. And yet when we look at market action, there's a lot more people selling when the markets are low and buying when the markets are high, because it feels at the low point, it feels fear and terror. So they're letting that overrule, and they're selling low instead of buying high. When they're buying high, it's because they've looked back in the rearview mirror and says, oh, it looks like things are going really well. So again, we have to be looking at how this word impacts each part of us. What about the relationships we have? Maybe this word is saying that we need to add a few relationships, or maybe we need to reduce the number of relationships we have, or change the relationships we have. What are we thinking about? Sometimes we're not thinking about the right things. And so this word can help us bring us back into that focus of what's the right thing to be thinking about. And it can even have an impact on our financial well-being. Because if we're focused, if this is something that we really want to be, maybe there's courses we need to take. So we spend money on courses instead of a vacation this year to improve ourselves so that we can make more money in the future. Anyhow, there could be other areas that you want to put as your key area to be impacted. Feel free to do that. Here's just some as an example. Want to add anything, Chelsea?
Just thinking, like, you wouldn't think one word would impact so many different areas of your life, but if you really sit down and think about like all the fine details, you'd be surprised at how much one single word could impact. So it's great. Now we are going to get into our own personal examples. So Derek is going to start off with his word, and I'll let you take it away.
Okay. The word for this year is rest, but let me back up a little bit. It's probably been 20 plus years ago since I've been doing this, and it sometimes is by accident, sometimes is more planned than others. But we were at a youth conference with our boys when they were, probably late teens, so it's maybe even more than 20 years. I'm dating myself a little bit, but this lady was speaking and was talking about, the fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, all those things. It's just like, don't just chill out, pick one word. And so that was the start of my one word experience. And I chose that year to pick joy. Not because I'm not joyful, but there were lots of things going on with the growing family and always things going on in business. I didn't always stop and really focus on how much joy we really had, having a great family atmosphere, having a business that I liked working at and was helping people and so on. So that was my first venture into the one word. So let's fast forward to this year. I didn't do very much planning. Oftentimes we'll set aside a day and just say, hey, let's think about things, plan about the year, and also what's our word for the year. And this year we got busy and didn't do that. New Year's Eve, we went out to a friend's place, and a few of us got together, had a nice evening dinner. For those of us our age, you can click on a little thing on the internet, if you search, and you can watch the New Year's Eve ball drop anytime you want. So we let it drop prior to midnight so we could get home and get to bed. And we crawled into bed probably around 10:30, fell deep asleep. And at midnight, right exactly at midnight, we heard these bangs, and I thought somebody was shooting outside our house. I quickly jumped up and looked out the window. It was just our neighbors welcoming in the new year with some fireworks. So I watched them for a couple minutes and then went back to bed. Only thing is, I couldn't fall asleep. So I laid in bed trying to sleep for a couple of hours, trying to get some rest. And I grabbed a book I was reading in my Bible, and I went downstairs, snuck out of the room. And for me, usually when I read, I fall asleep very quickly. But I read a bunch of my book, read scriptures, still wasn't falling asleep. So I just sat back and said, well, you know, God, what do you want to do with me this year? Or what do you want me to focus on? And actually, relatively quickly, I got the word rest. I thought, yes, rest. I would like that. Let me go back to sleep. But I didn't fall asleep. Then the next thing came was rest in God. Okay, well, how do you do that? You know, I don't talk about be still and know that I'm God. Okay, I'm still. And then what popped into my mind was the acronym REST. Rapidly enter spiritual territory. And I sort of smiled at that. I said, well, okay, so yes, I'm a man of faith. I spent some time praying. But as I started to meditate on that, I thought, okay, so what does that really mean? And what it really means, and what's sort of why I chose this picture here, because as I said, I'm a doer. I like doing things. I don't like resting. And this is a great example. This lady is resting. She is prepared. She is trained. She knows what she's doing, but she's waiting for just the right moment. And the right moment is when that wave curls up and she can turn her surfboard around and jump on it and have a wonderful ride, resting on the wave doing most of the work. She's had to prepare, but she's not the one that's forcing the waves. She's riding the wave. And that's sort of what the idea of rest is don't try and do everything yourself, Derek. You're a doer, but you can't, in my business, I can't change the markets. I can't control the markets. So I have to learn how to rest on that. There's lots of things in our business that we don't control. Lots of things in life we don't control. So how can I rest and keep my eyes out on a longer term picture and really try and get the big picture of what's going on? Society has become so fast paced, like Instagram, Twitter, all these, I really don't go on those things a whole lot. Partly because it distracts me very easily. And one thing that research is showing is that people's attention spans have become shorter and shorter. You think of the news clips and so on, like it's now down to about 2 or 3 seconds that you have to catch somebody's attention if they're going to watch any further or listen any further. So that's a far cry from what things used to be. But when we take things in just little snippets like that, we don't often take the time to think through what's the full consequence. So what's the full picture going on here? And so, again, for me, it's to rest, not to jump to immediate conclusions. When I look at somebody, when I hear something, when I see something, is rest, look at the bigger picture, say, what's really going on here? What should I do? What's going to be in the long-term best interests of me? So help me avoid poor decisions. And that's how I came up with rest. And that's my journey this year. Oh, and by the way, I never did fall back asleep, but there's the wonder of it. I was fully energized all through the day and had a great day. So Chelsea, what about your word?
Yes, thank you. So yes, as I said earlier, your word was very more methodical in how you came to it, whereas mine was pretty much an easy one for me. So some of you know that my husband and I have 2 young kids, ages 4 and 2. But before having kids, you likely don't know that I was an avid CrossFitter. If you don't know what CrossFit is, it's basically gym on steroids. So very in-depth, very high intensity training. And I was doing that about 5 to 6 days a week. I had plenty of time to make healthy food. I was even referred to as Healthy Chelsea. on my social media handles, I was actually Healthy Chelsea. So very much into the health and fitness world. Since having kids, I've tried to keep that focus, but have failed over and over due to lack of planning, lack of dedication, lots of excuses saying I don't have the time. But we all know that if you really want something, you'll find the time. And I just wasn't putting my mind to the matter. Just like Abraham Lincoln said, a dull mind isn't going to get you anywhere. So it is very true. And this was also the first I've heard about one word, is when Derek suggested it as a topic for today's webinar. So he shared his word of rest with me. He explained what it was. And shortly after, like maybe within an hour after, I knew immediately what my word was going to be for this year, which is health. The thinking part then was how I was going to implement this one word, health, into all those 6 or 7 different areas of my life. I needed to ensure that this word was going to stay front and center. So the 3 things that I did to remind myself daily is I actually added it as my screensaver. You can see it's the same, yeah. So it's the same picture that's on this slide right now. It's basically, all the areas of health, eating healthy, making sure that your body is healthy and all those things. So I added it as a screensaver on my phone. Before creating this word, my kids were my alarm clock. So I never had to set an alarm on my phone. Just whenever my kids woke up, I would wake up. But now I set an alarm on my phone earlier than the kids get up, so I can have my me time, get up, exercise, get my meals ready for the day. And that's helped a lot. And I also purchased a 2023 planner, so I can put in everything that I need in there. I like planning out my schedule, so it really helps me, what's coming up, what do I have to get, things like that. So those are 3 things that have been my reminders. And the 3 people that I shared my word with was initially Derek, because he's the one that explained it to me, and shortly after my word came to me, so I shared it with Derek. And I also told my husband and my sister, as they are my support system, and they're actually really into health and fitness right now too. So it really worked out. My husband and I make meals together, we work out together, so it's been really, really supportive. So that is my example. I hope Derek and I's one words will be inspiration for you on how you can think of yours and the process and things like that. Lastly, we do have some resources, so I'll let Derek just talk through those a little bit.
Well, just about your health part, it's my idea of a health or a balanced diet is an ice cream cone in each hand. So I have a little bit of a weakness there. I'm generally pretty healthy, but my family seems to think that I don't get enough chocolate and things. So Christmas time, I overindulged on some things like that, and I'm working on that.
Well, balance is very important. So it sounds like you're on the right track.
I might be a bad influence on you sometimes.
Okay.
But there are some resources. There's a free little one-word action plan, just talking about what we went through here at the website, getoneword.com. So you can just Google that, or Chelsea, when you send out after we get the approval for the video, you can send out the links with that. Mm-hmm. There's a book by the same name. And again, as part of their process, the whole book only takes about 45 minutes to read because they're trying to break things down into simplicity and not take long times. We still need to set goals. If you're working, if you're in school, there's still going to be goals either we need to set personally for ourselves or get set by us by outside sources. And that's good. We need those goals as well for specific things. That's more for the doing and having. The one word is more for who we want to be. What's our character? Who are we? And so that's sort of the difference. But if you want some help on goal setting, there's a link, which again we'll go. It's on our website. Christian and I did quite a good one a year or so ago on goal setting. And there's 2 great books on habits, which really are the key to achieving goals. You just habitually build these little things in, as Chelsea's doing right now. So she sets her alarm. She's building a habit, not of just getting up with the kids, but of getting up a few minutes earlier so she can build that habit of doing a few things and not letting life pull you away from those things that you want to accomplish. So two great books, Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg and Atomic Habits by James Clear. So it's really, again, we hope that you've gotten some idea of the great impact that simplifying into one word and narrowing that focus can have such a broad impact. And I'm going to finish with a quote from Steve Jobs. Did a pretty good job of becoming very successful. But he said, simple can be harder than complex. You have to work hard to get your thinking clean to make it simple. But it's worth it in the end, because once you get there, you can move mountains. And I truly believe that's very accurate. I've seen the benefit of it in my own life over the years, and hopefully you will too. Any closing comments from you, Chelsea?
No, just as usual, we have recorded this, of course. We will be sending out the recording in an email, and we'll also include links to the one-word action plan and for our goal setting YouTube video as well. So we'll get all that out within the next week or so. And now we just wanted to finish off with some questions. So if you had any questions that you thought of throughout our presentation, feel free to put them in now to the chat function on Zoom, and we can walk through those. Okay, so we did get one. It is, do we just need, can it be more than one word, or is it just strictly one word?
I laugh at this because, and this was a number of years ago, a colleague of mine and I were doing something, and we were sort of asking each other, what's one thing that is attractive about this particular opportunity? And both he and I gave three of them, and one of my sons was looking and says, that's the trouble with you guys. You ask for one, but neither one of you answered the question. You did three. You couldn't even answer your own question that you posed to each other. So the answer is no, one word. That's it. That's the whole point, is to break it down into one word. So it's very simple. The more focused that you can be, the better it is. And then as we talked about, is how does that one word work its way through all the different important areas of your life? How does it apply to each of those areas? Or how can you work it out in that area? So just one word, not multiple words.
Mm-hmm. So I guess this follow-up question, they said, can you split up the year with 2 words? So 6 months is one word, and then the next 6 months is another.
The immediate answer is nope. It's one word for 1 year. Although I would retract a little bit on that. If, big if, you've focused on that one word for the first 6 months and you feel you have really sort of completed everything as you look through all the different areas of your life, you go, yeah, like, Chelsea, she's back doing, she's running triathletes or triathlons or whatever by mid-May or something like that. And, she's healthy and everything is just working tickety-boo. And I really can't think of anything more that I want out of this for this year. Then possibly and potentially you could do a second word, but that doesn't mean you give up on the first words. So now you're starting to get into it. But really, one word for the year to really ingrain that and become who you are. That would be my recommendation.
And I guess that would mean no do-overs, right? You can't say, choose one word now, and then 5 years later, you're like, I really like that word. I'm going to do it again.
No do-overs. You've got to come up with a new word. Now, it can be a similar word. So like, I had that joy. Well, what about happiness or enjoyment? I mean, different takes, but it's a different word. And so what does that word mean? Because each word does have a specific meaning. And how do you work that through those various different areas of your life? How do you work it into those areas, and how does it become part of you on an ongoing basis? Anything else coming in?
There's one last one. If the one word sounds so simple, does it really work?
Well, that's the challenge to you. I believe it works. It's worked well for me in my life. Anybody that has really taken the time to come up with one word, do the kind of things that we're talking about to sort of get it firmly cemented in your mind and be focusing on it through the year, I have never heard of anybody that said, oh, this was a stupid idea, it didn't work. I have had people that thought about it, never really went any further, said, well, nothing happened. I go, well, you didn't do any work. You didn't really focus on it. Like, what was your word? What did you do? What does that mean to you? And they couldn't explain it because they came up with a word and then that was where it stopped. They didn't work through the process and didn't apply it. So, as Chelsea said in that one section, it's where the rubber meets the road. You actually have to do something with the word. You have to get it fixed into your mind and just have it going through everything, every facet of your life. It becomes the part of the fiber of your being.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, that is all of the questions that we had. If you can think of any, once we end this call at any time, feel free to give us a call or send us an email. We'd be happy to help or walk you through to help you discover your word. Thank you again for your time. Derek, I'll let you close it off.
So Chelsea's going to go off and have a healthy lunch now. We finished a little early, so I'm going to go have pizza. And
wonderful.
And hope everybody has a great day. And thank you for joining us. And look forward to seeing you again. Bye for now.
Take care.